Thanks to the grace of heaven, virtuous masters, grand predecessor, and predecessor, thanks to the compassion of the transmitter, and everyone here for giving me the opportunity to continue to speak last week's topic on Liao Fan's 4 lessons. I would like to also thank to the people who translated the commentary in Chinese to English and hoping to reach out to non-Chinese speaking groups. The book was written in the old Chinese traditional language, which was not an easy text to understand by the modern people. So that's So last week we talked about how Liao Fan's entire life was predestined and predicted by Mr. Kong, including his death at age of 53 on August 14 at 1 a.m. Time goes by. Things happened with Liao Fan were expected. He lost his interest and desires about anything and everything until one day he met an enlightened Zen master, Yungu, at the Compassionate Cloud Temple, who almost mistaken Liao Fan was someone of remarkable capabilities because of his not giving rise to a single thought for 3 days and nights meditation. However, Liao Fan was told by Yungu that he was no more than a common mundane person who was bounded by the qi of yin and yang and fate. Here we want to pay attention to Liao Fan's meditation with Yungu when face to face. At the time was impressive, but he told Yungu the truth reason for him not to give rise to a single thought. He completely surrounded by his fate. His meditation is known as nothing in the vacuum space or void. In Chinese called 完空, instead of the true emptiness, 真空妙有. What do we know about the true emptiness? Yes, our true nature, our Buddha nature, right? Or Tao. It is our Buddha nature, the essence, the Tao, which encompasses the entire universe. 虚空无相, 但也不拒绝诸相发挥, right? Everything around us, including our body, is not real. Not real means temporary, okay? It doesn't last forever. Everything in this world must go through arising and cessation. It was not there before, then due its karmic affinities, it appears. It ceases or diminishes or back to the Mother Earth or Mother Nature after certain years. They become dust. Only the essence is forever here, there, and everywhere, and eternal. It never arises nor ceases. So lesson 1 is about learning to create his... So let me just go to here. So lesson 1 is about learning to create destiny. Yungu made Liao Fan realize that he doesn't need to be bounded by his fate, and he can change it by begin accumulating good deeds. Practice repentance, severing all bad habits and thoughts. Recite mantra to overcome scattered thoughts. Drawing mantra for the practice of mind concentration. Reach to the state of no thought. Live morally regardless of good or bad times and long or short life. He was vowed to complete 2 separate times of 3,000 good deeds in attaining his wishes. One was to pass the imperial examination, and second wish for a son. Once he completed all the good deeds, he made another wish to complete 10,000 good deeds for the next level in the imperial exam. Here is telling us that even something is not meant to be yours, but if you do lots of good deeds, your fate can change. Fate is not fixed. Lesson 2 is about way to reform. Mencius once said that a sense of shame is important in a person's life. When a person knows the word shame, they will put forth their best effort in reforming faults. Liao said, "We all should have a sense of shame to prevent arrogance, which is the worst enemy to all cultivators especially." The second way to reform is that one must know fear about our faults or wrongdoings, fear about the consequences each fault might evoke. We talked about last week, if a person can have a courageous, kind thought at the most important moment, then it can cleanse away hundreds of years of accumulated sins. Like one lamp is necessary to bring light into the valley that has been dark for 1,000 years. So let's go to... Right. So the third way to reform, one must use all his efforts, willpower, and resolve to change immediately. No doubt, no wait or postpone until the next day. Okay. A minor fault is like a thorn sticking into our flesh and should be quickly removed. Right? A big fault is like a finger bitten by a poisonous snake. We must cut off that finger without hesitation to prevent the poison from spreading and taking our life. Finally, we will continue today's talk about the 3 methods of practice in helping one reform. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so we kind of briefly talk about this. The first is changing based on the matter through one's behavior, and the second one is changing through reasoning. All right, so changing through reasoning, a person who tries to reform can refrain from wrongdoings by understanding the reason and principle behind why he should not do it. In the instance of killing, one can reform through contemplating. Loving all living things is the virtue of heaven. All living beings cherish their life and are afraid to die. How can I be at peace with myself by taking another's life to nurture my own? At times, animals were even cooked alive, such as fish or crabs. They may not have been completely slaughtered before going into the cooking pot. Such pain and suffering reach down into the bones. How can we be so cruel to these animals? Once the meal is done, even the delicacies become body waste and are excreted. The result of our killing accomplishes nothing. We can be nourished just as well by consuming vegetarian foods. Why let your stomach become a graveyard and reduce your fortune through the sin of killing? Think again of all the living beings with flesh and blood. Like us, they have a consciousness. We should cultivate virtue and allow these living beings to feel safe around us. How can we continue to harm their lives and make them hate us? If you think about it, you will not have the heart to swallow their flesh. When things do not go the way we wish, it is because we haven't cultivated our virtues and morals and have not accumulated enough merits to move others. We should always reflect upon ourselves first and see whether we have mistreated others. If we practice thoughts and diligently cultivated this virtue, then adversity and slander can actually become our training ground to refine our character and to fulfill our goals. Therefore, we should be very glad to accept someone else's criticism and teachings. Like Liu Jiangshi said, 欢喜心甘愿受. Right? What is there to be angry and complain about? Additionally, to remain unmoved by slander is like letting a torch burn itself out in space. If we hear others slandering us and try to defend ourselves, it would be like the spring silkworm spinning its own cocoon. There was an old saying which stated, one who ties himself in a cocoon is looking for suffering. Therefore, no benefit but harm is derived from getting angry. There are other faults and offenses we can change along the same lines. If we can understand the reasoning behind the need for reform, we will not make the same mistakes twice. Here's another example of changing through reasoning. One who often gets angry should stop and think of the fact that everyone has their individual strengths and weaknesses. According to my reasoning, this is Liao Fan's reasoning, he says, if I touched on someone else's weakness, I should pity him for his weaknesses and forgive his shortcomings. If someone offends me for no reason at all, then it is their problem, and that has nothing to do with me. There is no reason for me to get angry. Lastly, what is meant by changing from the heart? Through a person's faults can amount to thousands of different types. They all stem from thoughts of the mind. If my heart is still of thoughts, then action will not arise and faults can't be avoided. If your heart is rooted in vices such as desire, fame, profits, or anger, you don't have to find ways to get rid of each fault. All you need is a sincere, kind heart and the willingness to practice kind deeds. As long as your heart is virtuous and kind, then naturally your mind will not generate any improper thoughts. All mistakes stem from the heart. Therefore, one should change from the heart. It is like getting rid of a poisonous tree. If you want to put an end to it, you must uproot it altogether so it cannot grow again. Why exert yourself to no avail by pulling out its leaves one by one and cutting it twig by twig? The best way to reform our faults is through cultivating our hearts. If we are willing to cultivate our hearts, then it is possible to purify our faults right away. This is because wrongdoings originate from the heart. Purifying the heart can erase all improper and bad thoughts before they are carried out in action. If my heart is pure, I can recognize and stop an evil thought as soon as it arises. The immoral idea will disappear the moment I lay my conscience on it. If I am unable to succeed at reforming a fault through changing the heart, then I will try at the level of understanding, knowing the reasons why I need to make the change. If I cannot succeed with this, then I will try to reform by changing through action / behavior and force the thought to dissipate. The best way is by cultivating the heart and understanding the reason behind the need to change. Most of us probably know about this. So the first one, it's from Liao, all right? So he says, careful with your thought, it soon become your action. I agree. Careful your action, it soon to form your habits. Right? Careful with your habits, it soon takes shape of your character. Careful with your character, it soon contribute to your fate. So from a thought to fate has a direct connection if you think about it. We need to learn about the universal truth and understanding it thoroughly. So this is the universal truth. We also know Tao cultivation in general is, we can do this in, it's called the four norms, or the first one is cultivation is very common, ordinary, right? Cultivation is very routine, is very regular. Cultivation is direct and genuine. Cultivation is very simple and plain. This is telling us it can happen in our everyday life. Sometimes all three methods have to be used to succeed at reforming a fault. Don't be a fool by dismissing the best way and preferring the alternative way. But even when one vows to change, assistance is needed to truly reform. We will need constant reminders from true friends who are witnesses to our actions in everyday life. As for our good and bad thoughts, we can ask the spirits and gods to be our witness. I practice this by writing down all my faults. Liao Fan practices by writing down his all faults. Anybody here that write down their faults? You do? Oh.
I am journaling. It's pretty common.
Very good. You do too?
I think along with writing down your faults, maybe like write down what you could do to, better that. Then it's better.
Yeah. I remember I used to do that when I was younger. And because it was too much going on, stopped, doing everything. But it is a very good habit. I still think it is a very good habit to do that. Where are we? 55. Okay.
I also like to write, so that I think that makes a difference. If you hate to write in general, then this might be hard.
So you must have a lot of book diaries kept, like in volumes?
I do it online, actually.
Oh, okay,
like
digital
online,
now.
Like a blog almost, but a private blog.
Yeah, share with your sisters.
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, so he practices by writing down all his faults and reporting them to the heavens, earth, spirits, and gods. What you should need to repent sincerely and wholeheartedly from morning to evening without laxity. If one can sincerely repent from 1 to 2 weeks, then 1 to 3 months, continuing this way, then one will definitely attain results and benefits. Okay. So, what are the benefits of repentance? For one, you may feel very much at ease, and your heart will feel light and generous. A not so smart person may suddenly become wise, and one can maintain a clear and relaxed mind even in the disturbing and confusing environment. One will also feel a great knowledge for everything. One would be able to drive out all hatred upon seeing an enemy and keep a happy attitude. One may dream of this is, I'm not sure if anybody has this experience. One may dream of spitting out black things, a sign of expelling improper thoughts and negative energies. This is Liao Fan's experience. Okay, leaving the heart much cleaner and purified. One may also dream of the ancient saint or sages who have come to promote and help them, or dream of flying in space without a care in the world. One may also dream of all kinds of colorful flags and ornately decorated canopies. canopies. Yeah, canopies. These unusual phenomena are all indications of a successful reform and dissolving of past offenses or debts. If you have any of these experiences, congratulations. Okay. However, one must not consider seeing these phenomena as a sign of her perfection. Instead, one must resolve to further improve the self and put forth greater effort to reform. Okay, so the previous chapter spoke about the many ways to correct one's faults in this present life, naturally assuring that a good life will not become a bad one. However, we are still unable to transform a bad life into a good one. We may be good and virtuous in this life. We do not know if we committed offenses in the past lives. The retribution for past deeds still has to be undergone. Therefore, in order to change a bad life into a good life, we not only have to reform our faults, but also have to practice all forms of kindness and build upon our virtue. Only in this way we can reduce to minimize the karma we created in the past. Once the number of our kind practices accumulates slowly but surely, that our unsatisfactory life will naturally turn into a satisfying life. Thus, the practice of changing destiny can be proven. The I Ching Book of Change states, families who perform kind deeds will accumulate fortune which can outlast many generations. Okay. So here, in this lesson, Liao Fan give 10 stories. I thought I read 11, but they said it was 10 story examples. So I picked out 3 to share with everyone. So the first story, once there was a family by the name of Yan, right? Before they agreed to give their daughter in marriage to the man who later became Confucius' father, they looked into the past deeds of the family. After finding the family to be one that practiced kindness and accumulated virtues, then the Yan family felt assured that their daughter would be marrying into a family that would be prosperous with outstanding descendants. Sure enough, their daughter later gave birth to Confucius. So this is the first one. So the second story example is that the Lin family from Putian, Fujian, among their ancestors was an old lady who was very generous. Every day she made rice balls to give to the poor, and always give as many as they asked for. There was a Taoist monk who came every day for 3 years, and each time would ask for 6 or 7 rice balls. The old lady always granted his request and never expressed any displeasure. The Taoist monk, who was actually a heavenly being, who came to test the depth of her kind heart. See, we'll never know who's around us. Okay, so always have that kind heart prepared with you. Realized the deep sincerity of this woman's kindness and said, I have eaten your rice balls for 3 years with nothing to show my gratitude in return. Perhaps I can help you in this way. On the land behind your house, there is a good place where you can build the ancestral grave. If you are buried there in the future, the number of your descendants who will have imperial appointments will be equivalent to the number of seeds in the pound of sesame seeds. Okay. So when the old lady passed away, the Lin family followed the Taoist suggestion and buried her at the designated place. The first generation after that, nine men passed the imperial exams, and they continue that way for every succeeding generation. Oh, okay, so here's another example. Is the Kangxi, Tu Kangxi, that's a person's name, who lived in China, Jiaxing, okay, who lived in Jiaxing, Zhejiang province. So Mr. Tu, right, used to work in the courthouse and would spend nights in the prison cells, talking with inmates. Whenever he found anyone to be innocent, he would write a classified report to the judge, informing him to innocent cases. The judge would then question the prisoners accordingly and clear the case. Through Mr. Tu's effort, 10 innocent people were released, and all of them were extremely grateful to him. Soon after, Mr. Tu also made a report to the imperial judge saying, if even in the imperial city there were so many innocent imprisoned, there must be many more throughout the nation. I recommend that the imperial judge send investigators to check the prisons for innocent people every 5 years. The sentences can be reduced or cancelled in order to prevent the innocent from remaining in prison. The imperial judge took his request to the emperor, who agreed to Mr. Tu's suggestion. He was chosen as one of the special agents in charge of reducing sentences for those who may be innocent. One night he dreamed of a heavenly being who came to him and said, you were not supposed to deserve a son in this life, but this act of reducing prison sentences for innocent people is in line with the wishes of the heavens. You will be bestowed with 3 sons, and they will all attain high positions. Soon after that, Mr. Tu's wife gave birth to 3 sons who all became prominent men in society. So the 10, well, at least the 3 examples that above all tell of the different deeds cultivated by different people. Although their actions differ, their intent was the same. What? To do good, right? If we were to examine goodness closely, we would find that there are many different kinds. This is very interesting. So there are like 8 different kinds of differentiating what's really a goodness by Liao Fan. So the first one, right? So he said, there is real and false goodness, honest and crooked goodness, hidden and visible goodness, seeming and unseeming goodness, improper and proper goodness, half and full goodness, big and small goodness, and finally, difficult and easy goodness. Okay. These different types of goodness each have their own reason, which should be carefully learned and understood. If we practice kind deeds but do not learn the way to differentiate between right and wrong, we may end up doing harm instead of good. So, what is real and false goodness? 何谓真假善? Right? To do things with the intention to bring in benefit to others is good. To do things for the sake of oneself is false. I remember I hear a lot from lecturer Zhen. He said a lot about this in Chinese, you know. 私心就是yeah 不好，要除私心。That's what he said. 除 is get rid of. 除私心. So he said a lot about this. Okay. All right. So. So when kindness springs from within the heart is real goodness. When one does good just for the sake of doing a good deed, then it is false. When one does good without expecting anything in return, it is considered real goodness. When one practices kind deeds for some other purpose than to benefit others, it is false. Okay. What is honest and crooked goodness? 何谓曲端? Okay. Honest goodness comes from the thought to help all others. And crooked goodness arises from the thought of greed in wishing only to please people. In harboring love for others, this is being honest. And in harboring thoughts of hatred and jealousy, this is being crooked. Honest goodness is when one is respectful, and crookedness is when one acts without sincerity. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. What is a hidden and visible goodness? 何谓阴阳? Right? When one does something good and people know about it, it is called visible goodness. When one does something good and no one knows about it, it is called hidden virtue. Those with hidden virtue will naturally be known by the heavens and will be rewarded. Those who practice visible goodness are known by people and they enjoy fame. Fame itself is a fortune, but fame is not favored by heaven and earth. For heaven and earth do not like those who seek fame. We can see that those who have great fame but lack the virtues supporting it will eventually encounter some kind of unthinkable adversity. A person who truly has not done any wrong but continues to be falsely accused by others will have descendants who will suddenly become prosperous and successful. In performing good deeds, there's also what seems to be goodness, but is actually not. And what does not appear to be goodness, but actually is. 何谓是非? Right? So, all right. So this is a story of a 子贡 and 子路. These are the story that each one of them did. So for 子贡, right? This is in the spring-autumn period, right? Because there were other countries which took their citizens as slaves for servants. The country of Lu Guo, right, made a law which rewarded those who paid the ransom to regain the freedom of their fellow citizens. At the time, Confucius has a very rich student named 子贡, right? Although 子贡paid for the ransom to free his people, he did not. Did I? Okay. All right. So he did not. He did it out of good intention. We all know that. Seeking only to help others and not for the reward money. But when Confucius heard this, he was very unhappy and scolded him, saying, "You act wrongly in this matter. One should not do something just because one feels like it. In the country of Lu, the poor outnumber the wealthy. By refusing the reward, you lead others to think that accepting the reward money is being greedy. Thus, all the poor people and others who do not wish to appear greedy will hesitate to pay for a ransom in the future." Only very rich people will have a chance to practice this deed. If this happens, no one will pay the ransom to free our people again. So another student of Confucius, Zilu, once saw a man drowning in the river and went forth to rescue him. Later, the man thanked him by giving him a cow as a token of gratitude. Zilu accepted his gift. Confucius was happy when he heard this and said, "In the future, people will be willing and eager to help those who are drowning in deep waters or lakes." If we look from the view of common people, Zigong, who did not accept the reward money, was good. And Zilu, who accepted the cow, was not as good. Who would have known that Confucius praised Zilu instead and scolded Zigong? From this, we can see that those who practice kind deeds must not only look at the present outcome, but should also consider the act's effect in the long run. One should not only consider one's own gain and lose, but should look to see the impact made on the public. What we do right now may be good, but with passing years, it may inflict harm upon others. Therefore, what seems like goodness may in fact be the opposite. And what appears to be opposite or goodness may someday turn out to be goodness done after all. Okay, so there are other examples of what approaches to be goodness, but actually is not. Forgiveness, okay, forgiveness is a virtue. We all know that. But it cannot be used without reason and wisdom. If we easily forgive and release a criminal when he has not repented and reformed, we may be letting loose a threat to society, causing more harm than good. In this case, forgiveness would be improper, and the man would be best left in his cell. Everyone ought to have manners, but they should be carried out with good measures. Okay. Overdoing your courtesy to others can result in making them proud and arrogant. Keeping to one's word is a virtue, but if one causes bigger trouble through keeping a small promise, then that would be considered improper also. Being loving and compassionate is a wonderful trait, but if compassion is carried out by allowing anything to be done, then the spoiled person would be daring and unrestrained, causing greater harm and trouble in the future. These are all examples of what appear to be goodness, but actually is not, and should be thoroughly contemplated. 何谓偏正? What is improper goodness? Okay, so in the Ming Dynasty, there once was a prime minister named Liu Wenyi, okay, who was a justice and lawful man. When he grew old, he retired to his hometown where he was loved and respected by all the people. Once a drunken villager went to his home and proceeded to insult him. Mr. Liu was not angered by his words, but instead told his servant, "The man is drunk. Let's not give him a hard time." With this, he closed the door and ignored the onslaught of insults. A year later, the same man committed a grave crime and was sent to jail with the death sentence. Upon hearing this, Mr. Liu said with great remorse, "If I had taken him to the authorities for punishment that day when he came to insult me, perhaps this would not have happened." A little discipline then could have prevented the great harm, and might have saved him from certain death. At that time, I was only thinking of being kind, and unknowingly nurtured a daring and outrageous character. Since nothing came from his deed of insulting a prime minister, he grew bold and went on committing the crimes which later brought him the death penalty. This is called the proper within the improper. Okay. So the next one, what is half and full goodness? 何谓半满? Okay, so here it's a story of 女主诗, right? Okay, so this is the Han Dynasty. Zhongli, right? Zhongli is one of the 8 immortals, right? So at this time, he was teaching his student Lü Zu, right? Lü Zu Shi, the art of transforming steel into gold. They will use this gold to help the poor. So then Lü Zu Shi asked his teacher, as Zhongli, right? Will the gold ever change back to steel again? And then he said, after 500 years, it will return to its original form. And then Lü Zu Shi then said, in this case, I don't want to learn this art. It will harm those who possesses the gold 500 years from now on. In actuality, Zhongli was only testing the goodness of his student's heart. And happy with the result, he said, to become an immortal, one must complete 3,000 virtuous deeds. What you have just said came from a true kind heart. Your 3,000 deeds are fulfilled. When we perform a kind deed, it is best if we can do it out of our innermost sincerity, not seeking rewards or noting in our minds how much we have done. If we practice thus, then all of our good deeds will reach fulfillment and success. If instead we always think about deeds we have performed, looking for a reward of some kind, then no matter how diligently we practice in an entire lifetime, the deeds will still be considered a half goodness. Keep thinking about, I should get some kind of return. That's only half goodness. Okay? For example, when we donate money to the poor, we can practice what is called the pure donation or giving, pure giving. In this type of giving, we do not, okay, this is very important, we do not linger on the thought of I, okay, who is giving, or dwell on the importance of the object I'm giving away, or think of who the receiver is. We're simply giving, and it is out of a true sincerity and respect. When we give with pure giving or pure donation, then here's dou, because at the time they used that unit, dou rice, right? 1 dou rice, dou li, can bring boundless fortune, and the merit from giving 1 cent can wipe away the sins from the 1,000 kalpas. That's what we know about. It's called 三轮体空. Right? Okay, what is big and small goodness? All right, so, here, this is Wei Zhongda. Okay, that's his name. Who was led into a spirit world to be judged for his good and bad deeds. The judge. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, so the judge there ordered for his record of good and evil to be brought out. This is interesting. Okay, so when the record arrived, right? So, Zhongda, right? Zhongda was astounded at the courtyard full of his bad records, and at the single score, in the old days score, right? everything is written and then it's rolled up. Okay, so at the single scroll, which contain his good deeds. So there's only one. Okay. The official then ordered for the two to be weighted on the scale. Surprisingly, okay, the bad records which have filled the courtyard were lighter than the single scroll of good deeds. So he asked the judge, I'm barely 40 years old. How could I have committed so many wrongdoings? Right? So we said the scrolls fill over the courtyard, right? And this is one single good one. So the judge answered him, saying, when you give rise to a single thought, that is improper. So as you can imagine, okay. So it is considered a bad offense there and then. It does not have to be carried out through action to be counted as a wrong. For example, when you see a pretty lady and give rise to improper thoughts, that is considered an offense. So he then asked him, what was the record in the single scroll of good deeds, which outweighed the evil deeds? So the judge replied, once the emperor planned to build a great stone bridge, and you proposed against the project, due to the hardship and toil it would cost the tens and thousands of people needed for the work. This is a copy of your proposal to the emperor. He said, I didn't make the proposal, but the emperor dismissed it and began the project anyway. My proposal had no effect on the matter at all. How can it bear so much weight against my numerous offenses? So the judge replied, although the emperor did not take your suggestion, that one thought of kindness you bore for the tens and thousands of people was very great. If the emperor has listened to you, then the good performed would be even greater. Therefore, when one is determined to do good for the benefit of all people, then a small deed can reap great merits. If one thinks only about benefiting oneself, then even if many deeds of kindness are performed, the merit would still be small. So we know the big and small now? Okay, last one. All right, what is difficult and easy goodness? 何为难易? All right, so this one is a student of Confucius named Fan Chi. Okay, so he asked his teacher how to cultivate one's humanity to its fullest. Confucius replied, start with what's most difficult to practice. What Confucius meant by the most difficult was to sever. Can't pronounce that one. It's to detach, right? The selfish mind, and one should practice that by conquering what is most difficult for one to conquer. We should practice like the old teacher, Mr. Su, okay, of Jiangxi, who gave 2 years' worth of salary to a poor family who owed money to the government. Thus, he saved them from being being torn apart. Should the husband be taken to prison? Another example, Zhang Wong, right, from Hebei. He saw an extreme poor man who had to mortgage his wife and child and had no money for their redemption. If he was unable to pay for their return, the mother and child could both lose their lives. Therefore, Mr. Zhang gave his 10 years of savings to the poor man so the family could be reunited. So both of them are rare, for they have given what is most difficult to give, and what others could not sacrifice, they did so willingly. Oh, the time is up. It's too long. Where am I? Lesson 3. Yeah. My goodness. Okay, so okay, let me just the last one. Let me just, I guess, should I just jump to the conclusion? but that just quickly. Lesson 4 is talking about humble. Okay, being humble, the virtue of humility, and it's important that we all know that we should be humble and. Okay, I think I'll just. Again, he's using real people in the history, talking about examples. Okay, let me just quickly go to the conclusion. So, all right, okay, so, page 91. Liao Fan's 4 lesson once again was written, and it was intended to teach his son, right, Tianqi. Instead of being bounded by fate, he told his son that one can change one's fate. His encounter with the Zen master Yungu opened up a new chapter and altered his predestinated life timeline told by Mr. Kong. He shared his experiences and provided living proof of rewards and outcomes of practicing kind deeds. In return, it changes one's fate. This happened to him, so he wants his sons to learn. Oh, at the end, he actually had 2 sons instead of 1. He was not meant to have any, but he had 2. The Zen master Yungu's advice helped him to realize fate is upon his own hands and not bounded by it. Right? So through his own cultivation and realization, the only way to change his own fate is to correct his habits and behaviors, temperament, purify his heart and mind, and believe that the law of cause and effect. As a result, he lived to 73 years old and had 2 sons instead of 53 with no descendants as predicted by Mr. Kong. The law of causality existed no matter one believes or not. What we are experiencing this lifetime is due to the causes from previous or many lifetimes ago. Although we do not know what we have done many lifetimes ago, we move forward with the understanding of repentance. Okay? By recognizing faults, not to repeat, correcting bad habits and rid of bad tempers, accumulating virtue by performing good deeds, such as the 4 of the immeasurable minds from the Buddha's teachings. In addition, we perform the pure giving, 三轮体空, with the understanding that we do not linger on the thought of I who's giving, or dwell on the importance of the object I am giving away, or think of who is receiving it. We are simply giving and is out of the true sincerity. Therefore, fate can be altered and would reflect in our present and future living conditions. This is the fundamental understanding of the universal truth or principles. Okay, so through hundreds and thousands of kalpa, accumulated karma does not perish. When the chain of the karma affinity meets or matures, one shall suffer from the ribbon of preordained fate. Yeah. So this is lecture Liu. Okay, this is Liu Jiangshi say it in many of his lectures. 重经百千劫，所造业不亡，因缘会遇时，果报还自受. It's basically what we did in the past will not perish, will not disappear. They will always be there. But as long as we do the 万缘放下一念不生, it won't meet. Okay, it won't. Then we can sort of get away with it. Okay, as long as they don't meet together, ribbon, right?
Conditions aren't right.
Right. Okay, so we will be all right. Okay, so everything began with one thought. So as we know, everything begins one thought. Okay, this is why we practice of letting go with all karmic affinities and do not give rise to a single thought. So one thought, we all have to know this. one thought is one cycle of reincarnation. That's how serious it is. Okay? 一念是一业，一念是一个轮回。Right? Alright, so this is it. Oh, hey, it's done. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I have said something wrong. I asked for God's and Buddha's and everybody's forgiveness and corrections. Thank you.